Welcome to Stereochemistry.
Hi, Matt. This is Megha.
I'm not Matt.
No, I was saying Matt because Matt's going to edit.
Hi, Matt.
How is it that I'm the one who's being Midwestern kind here?
Boston does things to you.
I guess it does.
Hey, everyone. I am Matt Davenport, and welcome to another bonus episode of Stereochemistry. Our goal with these bonus episodes is to give you a little more access and insight to how we do our jobs here at C&EN by taking you behind the scenes with our reporters. Today, you're going to hear from a couple of C&EN's best. Ryan Cross, our Boston biotech reporter who grew up in Indiana, and Megha Satyanarayana, who reports for both our business and science teams at C&EN. She's based in Dallas after living and working in Detroit for a while. And both of them were just in San Francisco at the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. At the very end of the conference, they sat down together and talked about their takeaways from the meeting. But we don't want to give away too much because both Megha and Ryan are working on awesome stories that will include some stuff they learned while reporting in San Francisco. Still, if you listen carefully, you might get some clues about what they're working on. So the goal of this bonus episode is to focus on the meeting itself. That is, what was special or different about JPM 2020? We'll start off by letting Megha and Ryan explain what JPM is.
So it's this big, giant brouhaha of pharmaceutical companies and biotech companies that all descend upon Union Square in San Francisco to basically make the deals and do the partnering that's going to get them through their next phases of drug development and, getting to market.
It's one of the industry's most important business conferences.
It is.
So there aren't any poster sessions here, which is kind of sad. I kind of miss that.
I love poster sessions, but we're kind of nerdy that way.
Yeah. Lots of slide decks, though.
Lots of slide decks and lots of spiral-bound presentations that are handed out. But what it's good for us as reporters is it helps us kind of frame what are some of the trends and some of the ideas that we need to keep an eye on as we move through our year.
All the acquisitions that we hear about throughout the year, a lot of these things, they start here this week at JPM.
Except that this year, there wasn't a lot of news about acquisitions.
No. I would say the theme this year at JPM was really that it was kind of a dull year. There weren't any mega mergers. There were no multi-billion-dollar acquisitions. There were plenty of smaller deals, lots of startups raising capital. But, by and large, when you listen to people walking down the hallways and look on Twitter, there's a lot of people complaining about how boring it was this year.
Which is kind of interesting because one source that I talked to, basically, he kind of shut me down really fast. He's like, oh, come on already. It's January. This is where the deals start. And I think that the quote that he gave me was something along the lines of, JPM is not like a hard line in the sand that everybody has to make announcements at. It's actually the beginning of a lot of stuff that will be announced, in Q3, Q4, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So this person that I talked to said this is going to be a big year for two kind of key reasons. One, there's a ton of innovation going on in biotech. Small and mid-cap biotech. And secondly, pharma is sitting on a giant bucket of money. So, throughout the course of the year, all the deals that we thought we were going to hear about at the meeting, which, seems to have been par for the course for the last several years, we're now going to hear later on. So this is my first JPM. Ryan, what number is this for you?
This is year 3 for me.
Goodness, you're an expert.
Did you think it was, this was your first JPM, but what was your impression of it?
One of the things that I really got out of this meeting is the number of interesting ways, both biologically and chemically, that people are trying to go about drug development, whether it's a small molecule or a biologic. I mean, I talk to companies that are looking at altering the microbiome using phage. I talk to companies that are looking to attack disease using carbohydrate-based drugs, fat-based drugs. It's not all sort of small molecule organic chemistry in the way that maybe we're used to. And I think that has to do with the fact that the diseases that we're talking about these days that are of interest to a lot of companies are really, really hard to tackle. They're very, person specific, this idea of personalized treatment, because one person's manifestation of disease may not be the same as another. And so what I sort of gathered from at least my conversations with people is that there's a lot of honest to goodness creativity. I think that for me, what's going to be the most interesting thing to come out of this year is potentially how the conversation is going to change around FDA as well. It is an election year.
This came up in several of my interviews as well, and it always started with, I don't want to get into politics, but
we're going to get into politics.
And then they got into politics.
Yep.
And it's just, it's sort of a big unknown, it's sort of a big variable that's hanging over the field, right? We don't know if the election is going to impact biotech and pharma at all. But with all the talk of drug pricing, it does seem to be a factor.
One of the people that I talked to while I was here said that one of the things that we should all be paying attention to over the next year or so is how FDA is going to cope with the number of gene and cell therapy applications that they're going to get.
Right. There are 2 cell therapy and 2 gene therapies approved in the U.S. so far. And there's, the FDA expects to start approving several more, several per year in 2025. Actually, I've thought about this a little bit. Back in the spring, I went to the cell and gene therapy meeting in Washington, D.C., and there was
Was it during cherry blossom season?
I think it was over. Either way, I didn't have time to get over there, unfortunately. I was, romping the halls of the gene therapy posters. And the FDA was there, and they were recruiting. They had, flyers up on the job boards trying to recruit for these, dozens of positions that they need to start evaluating these cell and gene therapy applications.
This one source had mentioned to me that he's really interested in seeing how FDA is going to respond to this imbalance that may happen where all of a sudden they're getting a lot more applications for gene therapies and for cell-based therapies versus just good old-fashioned hardcore small molecule inhibitors or small molecule compounds.
So I'm going to step in and cut them off before they go too in-depth and scoop themselves. But don't worry, they've got plenty more biotech news coming your way in C&EN. And we do have time for one last hot take from JPM.
So what was the most interesting thing you've learned this week? Am
I supposed to have an obvious answer for this?
No, not at all. We're going to change it to what is the most interesting thing we saw this week?
Oh, well, I saw so many interesting things.
I mean, I thought the elevator was pretty interesting.
The elevator is probably was probably the funniest thing that happened to me this week.
Yeah, it is insanely expensive to be here this week. And some of the people have done some really clever stuff to try and make this easier on themselves. For example, at one of the hotels we saw, this one company bought an entire elevator so that their people could just go up and down without ever having to wait.
I tried going on that special elevator later.
Did you get smacked around?
I got smacked out of the elevator. So it works, I guess.
Oh, I felt so bad for the guy. Like, I don't know what you call him, a bellman? I felt kind of bad for the guy because at one point he was like, anybody going up this way? Anybody going up? And I was like, dude, just let us on. But of course, he'll get in trouble.
That is the most JPM thing possible.
It is. Mm-hmm. I did see something that was really funny. There was a guy yelling into his phone about antibodies in a Thai restaurant.
Also very JPM.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's just...
that might just be San Francisco.
Yeah. A coffee shop in Berkeley charged me 25 cents for a plastic cup today. Don't even get me started.
All I hear, go get the money. So I go get it.
I know what you're wondering. How can I possibly keep tabs on how all these trends play out? Good news! I've got an easy answer. Subscribe to C&EN's newsletter. That way, all of the stories that you want and need from us will show up right in your inbox every week. Visit cenm.ag/newsletter to sign up. And here's another super easy thing to do. Treat yourself and follow Megha and Ryan and their spectacular editor, Lisa Jarvis, on Twitter. Megha's at Megha S, Ryan's at RLC Science Boss, and Lisa's at Lisa M. Jarvis. You'll get awesome biotech insights, CRISPR rants, and the occasional pharma-inspired fantasy story. That's all for this episode. The music you're hearing now is Go Get the Money by A Teller. And we'll be back soon with another episode, so be sure to subscribe to Stereochemistry wherever you get your podcasts. We've actually got a full episode devoted to climate change coming your way next week. Carrie Jansen will be talking with early career chemists about how they're taking on climate change and how they find optimism when the future seems so grim. So, until then.
I'm Megha S, and Ryan is...
Ryan Cross, the Science Boss.